our guest co-host today has been taking care of animals for over 25 years. Please join me in welcoming to the show veterinary specialist and the founder of the German veterinary clinic and Trinity Veterinary Behaviour. It's Dr. Katrin Jahn. Thank you so much for being with us.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the warm welcome.
I think all of us, when we were kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's astronaut or vet.
Yep.
And you actually went and did it. 25 years in the industry.
Yep.
So tell us what it's like living every childhood dream.
I mean, it's amazing. It's tough at times, but it's pretty amazing. So I did want to be a vet from the age of, I think, probably 11 or 12 or 13. So yeah, I'm doing the thing, living the childhood dream. But yeah, it's amazing.
And it's very interesting that you go into the psychiatry. Is this quite a new development to actually look into the mental health and how it affects physical health when it comes to animals?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's probably an area that's been around now for about 5 or 10 years. And we do have a specialism in it now. So veterinary psychiatry is a term that is being coined. But yeah, the mental and emotional health of our pets is so important. And it's something that we've just forgotten about, or we just haven't been as good at taking care of their mental and emotional health.
So being a pet owner myself, I know we were briefly talking about horses and our love for our equine friends. I obviously want to look after my horse the best I can. If you've got a pet, whatever it is, how can you tell if they're happy? You obviously want their psychological welfare as well as their physical. How can you ensure that your pet is genuinely happy?
Such a great question, and I think probably the most important thing is to understand their behaviours, because their behaviours tell us so much about their mental and emotional state. And a lot of that is to do with reading body language and facial expressions, understanding whether they're showing abnormal behaviours, so whether they're maybe showing aggressive behaviours, or in horses, a really common one of these abnormal repetitive behaviours where they're kind of showing almost like a stereotypy or something like that. But yeah, essentially it's knowing behaviour of that species and looking out for the telltale signs, whether they're happy or not happy.
Fantastic.
It's interesting. My Maltipoo Luna, she's 3 years old now, and every time I travel, when I come back, I feel like she's a lot more distant than usual, and it takes her a couple of days to almost trust that I'm not going anywhere again. Is that normal amongst pets, or is that a sign of anxiety?
I think it's quite normal. I think any change to a routine can be a little bit disruptive. So, you being away and potentially changes in routine, somebody else looking after them, can cause a little bit of worry and stress. And there may be a little bit of anxiety, but as long as they bounce back quickly. So that's another thing that we look for, is how quickly do they return back to normal and return back to kind of their normal behaviours and sort of baseline. That's what I'd be looking out for. But yeah, it's probably quite normal.
Okay. A lot of people, Dr. Katrin, to this day, still think that psychiatry or any kind of therapy for humans is a ridiculous notion. They think that wrongfully, of course. And now they're like, oh, even the pets have psychiatrists these days. But tell us a little bit about the process. Obviously, you're not having one-on-one sessions discussing mental issues with the animals. What is it that you do exactly?
Yeah, so it all starts off with a consultation. It is a little bit like a one-to-one, but it's the pet owners that bring the pets in. I get a long questionnaire beforehand, so the owners fill in like a 15-page questionnaire on behavioural history, physical health history as well. And then we do a consultation. So the pets either come to me or I go to them in their home, whatever's more convenient. And we talk about, kind of go in more in depth about those things, and I get to observe the pet either in my clinic or in their normal habitat. And that's where I start to look for those telltale behaviour signs. And then based on that, we come to a diagnosis, because we all know without a diagnosis you can't come up with a treatment plan. And then based on that diagnosis, we do come up with kind of a co-designed treatment plan from the pet owner and myself, to try and understand what's actually practically doable and feasible for them. And there are lots and lots of different elements to that treatment plan. And one of them is psychopharmaceutical medication. So just like we would in people. And you're absolutely right, there is still such a stigma, even in human medicine, around psychiatry. And yeah, we are using the same things in our pets with sometimes absolutely game-changing effects. But you have to know what you're doing.
Fantastic. So how closely interlinked do you think physical health and mental health in animals is?
What a brilliant question, because it is literally everything. So we know physical, mental and emotional health, they're all part of the same puzzle. And things, if we think like the gut-brain axis, for example, so if maybe your tummy's not as healthy as it should be, that has effects on the brain and vice versa. Chronic pain is a huge one, and we're not great at diagnosing chronic pain in our pets. So we might have a pet that's in undiagnosed chronic pain, and then that of course can have behavioural challenges as well. So they might become a bit more irritable, maybe show aggressive or defensive behaviours. But yeah, it's all interlinked, and that's why it's so important that we as vets come into that process. So we don't just perhaps send a dog that's maybe not behaving as we'd like them to a trainer, but that we actually go from the inside out and we try and figure out what's going on for that pet.
Do you do any work with rabbits? Because I've got 2 rabbits and they don't show any sign of pain or struggle because that's their nature not to. So it's very difficult to know if there's anything going on with them. Have you ever had to deal with an animal that doesn't show its behavior?
Yeah, I mean, cats are another one that are a bit like that, but rabbits, because they're a prey species, absolutely, their main thing is to not show anything because otherwise they're going to get eaten. So they freeze, but that freeze response in itself can also be telltale. But I actually had a couple of rabbits during my residency, a few behavior problems in rabbits, biting and chewing things. Rabbits are very good at chewing things, that's part of their natural behavior. So then when they chew your furniture, it's not quite so desirable. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Prey species, and horses fall under prey species as well, are really good at hiding things. So you have to really know what to look for.
Dr. Katrin, how does, obviously we're in the UAE, in the Middle East, and this beautiful climate that is lovely in December, November, October, but now as we go into the summer, the climate change, can it affect the mental state of animals in this part of the world?
I think it can, and I think mainly because we're maybe not able to meet their behavioural needs as well as we maybe should be. So we know that physical exercise can be, doesn't have to be, but can be a really important part of meeting those behavioural needs. And then when the climate turns and we're not able to do some of the activities that they really love, that can become challenging. So we have to get really creative at stimulating them in other ways. So getting lots of puzzle games and mental exercises going to help with that. But yeah, I think you're right. The climate does play a big part in that.
I do want to ask, since we're on the subject of the climate, obviously if you've already got your pet here, your pet's here and you need to handle them the best way. But people who are thinking about bringing dog breeds, for example, most of which cannot handle the heat, most of which are banned, but you can still get them. And they'll think, oh, it'll be fine, I'll get them an air conditioner. How much does it affect their mental health to bring a husky or a Malamute to the UAE, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite a lot. I think that's obvious because, again, you have to think about what are they bred to do? Well, huskies are bred to pull sleighs and run in the snow and so on. And so if you're not able to meet those needs, especially in the summer, that can definitely have an effect. And also I'd say before we start thinking about bringing animals in, there are so many animals already here in the UAE that are desperately looking for fantastic homes. So I think going down that path is probably a really good option.